So we've been married. I'm Meredith. This is Chad. We've been married for 10 years, just had an anniversary. We've got 3 kids. Our oldest is, all of our kids have double names. Carson Perry. She is 8. We've got, Pearl Monroe, who is affectionately called Roro, or nickname that stuck from birth. She is 6. And then we've got, Franklin Reeves, who is 2. So yeah.
It keeps us very busy. Yeah. So we got 3 kids,
2 girls and a boy.
2 girls and a boy, and we just we got on the our daughter. I don't know if you want to go into that yet, but our daughter was diagnosed in the fall of 2019, on November 21st of 2019, with leukemia.
She was 3.5.
Yeah, 3.5 years old. Our middle child, Roro, and she. A lot of people ask, how did you see this, the symptoms and things like that? And it's basically, she started complaining of bone pain, leg pain.
Yeah, it was about 3 weeks of ping ponging between doctors, getting x-rays. She had a rare cheek infection, like in a healthy person. That never would have happened. But because her immunities were so low, her cells couldn't, or her immunities couldn't fight it. But so then the big kicker was that she started crawling. Actually, it was on my birthday, November 19th, and I knew something just wasn't right. And then we went in for more x-rays, thinking she may have had like a fracture, even though we had not seen her fall, or any kind of big falls or anything. And that mama bear feeling like something wasn't right. I was also pregnant at the time, 20 weeks pregnant with our son. But that intuition, something, she was very clingy. Her personality was changing. She was not enjoying life, like simple things. Like we had gone to, what was it?
The fair,
the fair, and then Polar Express.
That's
and
right.
These fun things as kids, and she was just becoming very clingy, and it's just something, she just was not overall feeling well. So she'd started crawling, and I said, we're going back to the doctor.
And we've been back and forth to the doctor multiple times, and everything we kept saying that something's not right, and like growing pains. Oh, she probably fell. Oh yeah. Everything in the book. And then finally, when she stopped walking, because now later on we learned it was the leukemia taking over in her bone marrow, to just hurt to walk. So she stopped walking, and that was just like, that's it. We're not leaving till we get some answers. And
which we found out through blood work. So the last thing for us to do was to do like a CBC panel of blood work, a whole workup. Her white blood cell count was super high. And that was the big red flag for our pediatrician, who referred us to our local children's hospital, Brenner Children's Hospital, they're phenomenal. Set us up with the doctor. They checked her over, did more, ended up doing more intense lab work. And that's when they came back and saw what they called the cancer cells, the blast in her blood work. And they said, she has leukemia, but she's had the best case scenario. It had highest cure rate. So we just had to hit the ground running from that moment. And being pregnant, and I don't know if you want to tell about
I mean, it was
how you told me.
Yeah, so she was pregnant, so the doctor didn't want to. He wanted to tell me first to see if I would tell her, or come in together, and he'll tell us both, because he didn't want to upset her because she was pregnant at the time. And so he called me at work to say he really wanted to see us in person, and I insisted on him telling me why. And and because we had seen him earlier that day, and he said the worst case scenario, again, like she said, could be leukemia. Best case scenario could be like mono.
Yeah.
And so I just said, you just go ahead and tell me, and I'll tell my wife. And he told me, I was at work, I'm sitting at my desk, and he said, I'm so sorry, but your daughter has leukemia. And it took me a second for it to sink in. And then he he said, she has cancer. And I said, okay, I will go home and tell my wife, and we'll come straight over there. And so they did. Him and Dr. Cram and our nurse Nancy, they both stayed late, and I went home. And so I work in television, and I was like 10 minutes before going on the 4 o'clock news, and when he called. And so I had to literally like walk down the hall and say, y'all got to find somebody else to do the news. I have to leave. My daughter's just been diagnosed with leukemia. And so I just walked out the building. And I remember driving home. It's about a 25-minute drive home. And it was a very quiet drive home. I didn't turn on the radio or anything. I just thought to myself, how am I going to tell my wife? And then also just kind of like just had this piece about it that this is just a roadblock in life, just a part of the journey, and we'll get through this. And so I walked into the door, and my wife was expecting me to be on the news. I wasn't there. She's like, why aren't you not on the news? Why are you here? And I remember walking in the door and seeing our daughter. She was sitting on the floor playing. And first thing I thought of was, how can she be sick? She's sitting there playing on the floor. And then I just told my wife that I'm sorry, but she has leukemia. And the doctors are waiting for us to come over to see them. And they're going to start tomorrow. They're going to admit her, put a port in, start with spinal treatment,
spinal taps with chemo.
And they're going to hit the ground running, and it's going to be 2 years of this. And so that's what we did. We went to the doctor that we left from the house, went there. They laid out the game plan. They were very comforting, and it did. I just had this peace about it, sitting there, knowing. I think it's part of my faith. I think it was also part of the doctors just, reassuring us that, this has a very high cure rate. She has the best case scenario. We just knew. We just knew she's going to be just fine. Just fine.
It was, for me, I was, of course, pregnant. And so, I was just a basket case. Gets me every time, but it's all of a sudden, like, your world is just absolutely turned upside down. And this is even before COVID, and I'm like, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to do this? Like, so I immediately quit work. I'm a hairstylist, and so I never even went back to work except to clean out my space. And
because she couldn't work.
There's going to have to be somebody, to take her back and forth to the hospital constantly.
And the appointments change like every other day because it's all dependent on your account. So it was just very difficult. So she quit work and I kept working.
Mm-hmm. And so, we just, I was a lot better once, we had a plan, and I understood more. In the beginning, everything's just thrown at you, and it's just, you hear all these words, and it's just like, it's not even sinking in. You're just, I don't know, you're just in complete shock. But once you get past that, we got a plan. Our community, once they found out, started rallying around with us and supporting us. And one of the most beautiful things is seeing the helping hands and hearts of people. Oh my gosh, just the things that people did. It was just incredible. Just the support and love that we felt. And so, we started with the plan, and she responded well with chemo. We didn't have many setbacks. Then moving towards the middle, I had the baby, which he was due April 11th, and he came 2 weeks early on his own, April 1st, which just adds to the story.
April Fool's Day.
this is 2020.
And
And this is also when COVID is rearing its head and everything's starting to shut down.
so just to lay out the our life. So about 2 weeks before that, everything started shutting down. I had to start anchoring the newscast from my living room. So I've got a child on steroids running around the house with chemo steroids. I've got a older daughter at the time who were having to homeschool because schools were shut down.
Well, they're going virtual.
Everything was virtual. And then wife went around pregnant. And I'll never forget the day I was on the news, March 31st. I was on the news
In our living room,
talking about something serious. And my daughter on steroids came over because steroids makes you hungry. She's like, Daddy, I want some orange juice. Live on the news. While our neighbor was ringing the doorbell, bringing food.
And I was in the shower because
she thought she was having contractions.
my water broke.
Yeah, her water broke.
My water broke.
And sure enough, the next day, April 1st, we walked in there and she had a baby. But it went that night.
And then turned into April 1st, next day. So, all of that happened, COVID was shutting things down, but we, I don't know, you just keep going. You still have to have a baby. You still have to do all these things. And then after we came home, were you going to add something?
Well, I was going to say, I think that was probably the hardest in the whole 2 years was during COVID, because the hospital got so tight on everything, like only one of us could go to appointments. Siblings were no longer allowed. And they like to encourage siblings because that way the siblings feel like they're a part of it. They understand what their sister's going through. So that was cut out. All the resources that are available to kids through the hospital and the community to help them through treatments all stopped. So she didn't have those resources or anything like that.
Like the playrooms are closed and they're still closed.
It was very difficult in that sense. And it was very, a lot of people say this, they feel like when they go through cancer, it's very lonely. And I get what they're saying because you get after the initial few months of people, gathering around you, then it dies off. And when it gets hard, it's when people just stop calling and they stop checking on you. And, here we are, we had a newborn and, and we're just kind of like all by ourselves. And it got real lonely. It was hard.
And with COVID, you don't know who you can let in. For instance, my sister's a nurse, and then, trying to have just like your kind of immediate family, closer families help. Like, you're like, I don't know if even they should come over. So you're just kind of like,
we're doing it all on our own.
Floundering.
Yeah. And that went on for months. So I think that was the hardest part through the 2 years. Well, that in the first month. The first month is when they get intense steroids.
Yeah.
And I just realized you asked us one question and we have not stopped talking.
It just felt, like total freedom. Just the fact that, we had to crush chemo pills every single night. There's pills, and then of course before that, all of the infusions and spinal taps. We were trying to count it, but it was like about 17 spinal taps. That's spinal taps alone. That's not including the amount of pills, the amount of infusions. Like, it's just, I can't remember it all in my head, but we have it.
3,000 some pills you took, chemo pills.
It's
we have the totals. I can send them to you. It's in an email.
So for all of that of course, it was like, she would weaned off. It just felt like freedom to ring the bell and like relief, with also not scared, but a little bit of fear, because knowing that those drugs are what kept the cancer cells away. There's always so for the first year after chemo, they do a check for labs and all of that, her blood work once a month. So that is always reassuring, but there's always like that hold your breath moment, like, just making sure that they're not going to spot anything. So with leukemia, it's a blood disease. So it's not stages. There's no scans. It's just detected all through labs and blood work. But that moment, it was definitely freeing, and honestly couldn't believe like we had actually gotten there.
That last night was a Sunday night when she took her last pill here at home. And it was, I'd saved a lot of the pill bottles, and I took a picture of her and all her pill bottles, and Meredith got her shirt that says
last day of chemo. Yeah.
She took her picture with it, and it was just looking at it now, it's just like, gosh, all the medicine that was pumped through her for 2 years. And then you get the stats from at the end from the hospital talking about all the chemo was put through her body. And now they talk to us about the long-term side effects and when to start spotting things. And when they're about third grade, they'll start typically learning
some learning disabilities
in a lot of the kids. And then, there's always the fertility when they get older, and she's got her heart scan of the week, just the long-term effects from all of that. But I think, so she took her last pill, and then because of COVID, we had to schedule a day for her to ring the bell, and a day her doctor could be there too. And we did it on her birthday, which was March the 28th. She turned 6, and she went to school that morning, and it was very sweet. Her class was going to line up outside the school and ring bells and party makers as she left to cheer her on, as she left to go ring the bell. And ended up being the entire school lined around the building and cheered her on, with her sister escorting her. And it was a beautiful day. It was a great birthday. I know it's one she will not forget, even being 6. She won't forget that, because it had so many high moments there of celebration and and seeing her ring the bell. She'd been talking about, because every day you go in the clinic, you walk by the bell, and she over the past 2 years, she tried to reach for the, and she wasn't tall enough, and then
she grew a lot in 2 years.
She was able to reach that bell on March 28th. And I always think about too that she was born in 2016 on March 28th, which was an Easter Monday. So she was born in this season of new beginnings and new life, and the promise of Easter. And for her to bring it on her birthday was like another little God wink for us. This is a new life, a new day, new beginnings again. And but she was born to be a middle child. She's very spunky, and I think that helped her a lot in all of this. And,
she's feisty. She's I was going to say resiliency. You hear a lot, kids are so resilient, and I mean, we see that in a whole new light. Like, we don't take that phrase lightly, because they really are. There's something about kids, as sad as it is when kids have cancer, they are the toughest fighters. They can handle so much more than adults can. And it's very true. It's harder on the parents than it is the kids.
There's moments like she would get her spinal infusion, and as soon as she'd wake up from sedation, she'd be like, okay, can we go to Chick-fil-A today?
And she would still hop through the parking deck.
Yeah, she'd be skipping through the parking deck back to the car. Whereas adults, if you were getting that same treatment, you'll be down for several days. But here our kids are just skipping through the parking lot. And it's just, it's reassuring for parents who are going through it, and there were moments too that things were hurting on her and she couldn't find the right way to tell you. And so there's just so much that goes through your head, the worries, the thoughts. What is she really feeling today? Having to hold her hands while we give her shots at home, do that several times. And it's just
there's also worries too for siblings, especially our oldest, who was seeing all this at home and trying to keep normalcy for her. And you know, we did the very best we could. And also with our community, you know, they reached out and also made sure that Carson Perry, our oldest, was, you know, loved on as well, which was super, super, super important.
People would send cards and they send them to both kids.
Yeah.
To make sure, you know, so she wouldn't feel left out. So we had a big celebration for the we invited the community to come, had bounce houses and everything. And my sister came and she was a volunteer and she wasn't feeling good at Roro's celebration. And 2 days later, she goes in and his blood work shows that she has leukemia. And again, we're step, so we're not blood related. But it's just like, here we just finished this for us. And now she's having to go through this. And she's diagnosed with the exact same leukemia, ALL B cell.
It's just that she's an adult.
She's a healthy 37-year-old. For some odd reason, you know, had a misfire of the cells and caused leukemia. And now she's going through this journey.
The symptoms for her, it was about 3 or 4 weeks, I think.
Like headaches.
Yeah, migraines, heart racing. When she was standing up walking, felt like she was going to pass out at times. And I think sometimes as moms, you just kind of fight through. She's got her husband have 2 little girls, 7 and 4. But you just kind of, I feel like, put yourself aside, or you kind of push through, think, oh, it's not anything, until, you know, it just really rears its head and you have to go to the doctor. And
she was at the celebration. She couldn't work the bounce house anymore.
Yeah.
She had to sit down, and then so the next day she went to the doctor. It's just like,
and the craziest thing is we had some new t-shirts made and she had it on as she was going to the emergency room and then was diagnosed. I just don't always understand these things, but I don't know if like God has got a reason that, you know, our stories are threaded together this way. So that one day we'll understand. Maybe. I hope.
Yeah. I think it's for, well, 2 things for us. Well, one off the top is the normalcy. They're losing part of their childhood. Part of their childhood is just taken away from them, and you're trying to salvage what you can. You know, losing her hair didn't bother her. It doesn't bother a lot of the kids. You know, we told her, you're going to lose your hair. She's like, well, will it come back? Yeah. Okay. But I think for me, it was the normalcy of keeping the family together and, you know, just trying to process it all while also going through the emotions of feeling so alone. I mean, you have people sending you cards and stuff, but people stop calling and they stop talking. And I think a lot of it has to do with people don't know what to say. People don't want to come around because they're afraid they might bring germs, or at that time COVID. And so it was, it got real lonely. So that for me, that was the hardest. And then fighting the insurance. I found out going through this, there's so many families and we were not immune. You have to fight your insurance companies. It's automatic denial and everything. And you just have to fight them. You just constantly appeal, and you just tell them, I know your business model. It's to wear us down until we give up and pay it. That's not happening with me. I'm going to keep on fighting until you pay it. So, and once they realize you're not giving up, it may take you 2 years. And the help of you know, like there was a PA in the clinic who, she was a feisty lady, and she called and, you know, she
straightened it all out.
Yeah, but it took it took 2 years, and there's, you know, so those are the hardest for me as a parent, was dealing with the emotions of it, feeling alone, trying to keep normalcy, and fighting insurance.
Yeah. and for me, it's just the hardest thing. I mean, was really because of being a mom, you just you feel like you're being pulled in a million directions, especially with 3 kids, like being pregnant and having a baby, a newborn, and then a sick child, and then a child that's healthy who you're trying so hard to keep normalcy and attention between all 3 kids. And obviously, there's the baby who is a newborn. Now he's 2. And then, the child that's sick. And you just feel like you're pulled in so many directions and you're worn down and you can't really go anywhere. It's hard to get that, what's the words? I'm losing the words. Anyways, just trying to give yourself time, it's just really hard.
I'll go.
Sorry. Speaking of toddler.
Okay.
But you just feel so worn down. And you just really just want balance and, make sure, I look down the road, making sure, I'm like, what if, my oldest has PTSD of all this, and like, we did something wrong somewhere, but we've tried our hardest, I just think those thoughts sometimes. We have done counseling for my oldest, like, which I just did because I thought, it would be not that she was showing signs of anything, but I just want to make sure she wasn't holding emotions and things in, and that she knew she had a safe place, another place, aside of her parents to talk
and get in front of anything she may be holding back. Just
not sweep things under the rug, and pull it all out when she's like 16 or 20, and
just try to get in front of it all.
Yeah.
And, So I started doing that in 2019. The first time I did it was literally a couple months before Roro was diagnosed. And I did it in honor of my grandmother who died of ovarian cancer. And it's been I've always liked riding bikes too. So it's just one of those events where it was a perfect storm for me. I get to ride bikes. I get to, raise money for cancer research. And so then the following year, obviously, 2020, they did not, they'd had it, but they did a virtual. So you did it like on your own. And then last year we did it in August. And so every year since, I've been riding in honor of my daughter. And then this year I'm riding in honor of my daughter and also in honor of my sister, who's now fighting leukemia. But the Victory Ride is just one of those events where everybody there has a story. Everybody's connected in some way or form to cancer. Somebody has been affected by cancer in some way.
It's the common ground. Yeah.
And so everybody there is it's really powerful when you go to the ride, because there's so many people there who there's a lot of people who are survivors who are riding, and then there are the family members they're there riding in memory of their loved ones. So it's very moving. It's very powerful. Just seeing that sea of people who are there for so many reasons. And it's also inspiring too, because you meet so many survivors and some that have survived some very tough cancers where the survival rate's not that great. And I've been fueled more by the fact that one of the things that childhood cancer has opened up our eyes to is the gross amount of funding that is set aside for childhood cancer research. I mean, the National Cancer Research Institute, which gets the tax dollars for cancer research and then passes it out, basically, they only allot 4% to childhood cancer. 4%. It's ridiculous. And you ask doctors and they all know about it. It was the first time we knew about it. Why is that? Some have opinions that, it's because kids can't vote. Or it's because most people donate to try and save themselves or adults. So it's just one of those things overlooked, and that's why you have all these cancer childhood cancer fundraisers and researchers like St. Jude and places like that, because it's just not happening
It's
anywhere.
the only way to get more money.
And like for example, we learned the power of the research because, for example, like Nurse Nancy, who is our daughter's nurse, she's been there 46 years. And so when she first started, in the 60s, children that were diagnosed with what Roro had, they were dead in a couple months. And when she started as a nurse in the pediatric oncology in the 70s, the kids had about a 40 to 60% chance survival rate. And now they have 93. So she's seen in her career
the advancement in medicine and research.
How many children are being saved. And so there's power in research, and it just has, because one of the hardest part is we've gotten to know a lot of other families in the clinic, and their kids have other cancers. And we've been to 2 funerals in the last 6 months for kids. I mean, parents are losing their kids, and they've come a long way with our daughter's cancer, but there's so much more we need to do for these other families and these other cancers. And some people have the opinion that childhood cancer is rare. I asked them to go into these clinics. You'll learn real quickly it's not rare.
Mm-mm.
It happens a lot more than you think, and it affects a lot of families. And the weird thing is they say they go through waves, and right now they're going through a wave. I think they've had like 6 kids come in the last 2 months with leukemia in our region. It's so that's another reason why I do this. And we also, Meredith and I, started because we're very blessed with a community that kind of helped us and stuff, and we've met many families that did not have that support. And so Meredith started a foundation called Roro's Heroes, named it after our community of people who came to help us. So it's named after them and honor them. And so one of the things we've been trying to do with that foundation is 1, raise awareness, 2, raise money for research, and 3, help the families who don't have the support financially and with whatever we can do to help. So that's our little part that we can do in our corner of the world. And I just feel like if more of us, if we could share the stories. Another reason why we shared Roro's story too publicly on social media, I cataloged 858 days of her journey. And I think and I hope that has helped bring more awareness to how far we still have to go and how much we still need to do. And the Victory Ride and the V Foundation is one great foundation here in North Carolina. A lot of that money goes to the research facilities here in North Carolina, Duke University, UNC, Wake Forest, which is where our daughter goes, to the Brenner Children's Hospital, which is at Wake Forest. So, we're seeing the effects, and it's what we can do. And I feel like if we all can do something in our whatever corner you live in, I think we really can make a difference in saving so many more kids. We're not going to stop. I mean, we're going to keep doing it and
pay it forward and help others and bless others and
keep educating people.
Yeah, educating.
I mean, one of the things too people are surprised by is it takes 2 years for kids to go through this. Yes, 2 years. And
for leukemia,
and that's for girls. Boys go through 3 years. They add another year for boys because it hides in other parts of their bodies. So we're not going to stop. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep fighting for the other kids and in memory of the kids we got to know that are not here with us anymore. So that's why we're going to keep riding the rides of the foundations and doing what we can in our little corner of the world. And hopefully within our lifetime and our children's lifetime, they'll see more of these cancers eradicated.